All right, hey everybody, welcome back to Next Up with Nick Gismondi, episode 2. Looking forward to this one. I love this guy. That's Ryan Loco. Now, you may not recognize him by face, but you certainly have seen his work throughout the sports world over and over again. He is a photographer extraordinaire. Loco, thank you so much for joining us, buddy.
My pleasure. But you know what happens is it's my face. So if you see this, that's me.
Oh, now I recognize you.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, now I see you. That's it. Ryan, you joined the World Team Tennis family just a year ago, and it's kind of your first major foray into covering tennis. I want to talk to you today a little bit about the behind the scenes of the photography, the passion for sports, a little bit about your process. But first of all, how you doing? You good through all this, other than being insanely bored like the rest of us?
I'm insanely bored, just sitting here. Obviously, when you're a sports photographer and they say, hey, no sports, that means, hey, no work. But otherwise, just focusing on my baking, which is obviously very important to me, making a lot of bread, making a lot of biscuits, making a lot of cake. It was just my birthday, so I made my own birthday cake. And otherwise, that's about it.
This is a weird time for guys like you and for guys like me. Obviously, your world is predicated on sports happening. My world as a television announcer, a hockey announcer, a tennis announcer is predicated on the same thing. How have you gotten through the mental side of not being busy? Because I feel like you're a lot like me. You're a type A personality that wants to go. Mm-hmm. You and I aren't good being idle like this.
No, like I tell people that I am extremely good at doing nothing. There's very few people that are as good at nothing as me, but I'm only good at that after I've done like 12 days on the road, and then I have another 5 coming up. So my 2 days, I'll do nothing. When I'm actually forced to do nothing, it's horrific to me. I like to create. I like to be out there. I never thought that I would miss a Delta Sky Lounge, but I actually do. Like, all I want to do is eat their bad hummus and just wait for my gate to be called. So yeah, this has been very tough. It's for me, I love to be a part of something. I love to be on the road. I love to find some awful diner that everyone talks about, and we got to go try it out. And then I love that feeling, and the feeling too of like when you step into the arena or you step onto the court, for that first time, and you're like, okay, this is where it's going to go down. We're 6 hours away, and you can feel like the energy that's going to come, right? The anticipation of what's going to happen.
Yeah, people I don't think maybe that aren't involved necessarily on the coverage side, the media side of sports like we are. But I would say that there's a lot of, and you were an athlete, I played a sport as well. There's a lot of that same kind of butterflies or nervous energy that happens before I go on the air to announce something. I imagine the same thing happens for you as someone who's a photographer.
Yeah, when I was in high school, I did plays and acting and everything. And I'm sure you're the same way in the sense of like when I had rehearsal, I didn't care. It just wasn't for me. It was hard for me to act 100%. I was just like, yeah, here's my lines, blah, 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 blah. And it's something about when the red light goes on. It's something about when the whistle blows and this is it. Like I don't have another chance to get that photo. That's it. It's the moment that happens in front of me and I have to capture it. And that's when I thrive. That's when I do my best. If they said you have 100 chances to get this shot of this guy or this girl doing something in a match, it wouldn't be the same. I need the red light on. I need that energy. I need that nervousness. And if I don't have that nervousness, like it doesn't feel right. And I think people assume like, oh, you don't get nervous anymore. Like, no, the day before a shoot, the day before a big game or a big match, like I'm still in bed, like struggling to sleep, just wanting it. I need to fall asleep. I just need to get to tomorrow, So I would imagine it's similar for you.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same thing. That countdown before you go on air for live television is one of the most exhilarating things that I go through. And then after that, you fall into that rhythm, I think, and okay, I've got to do this and I've got to do that. And this is the order in which I'm going to do it. And you've got a producer in your ear. But the pressure for you is the same as the pressure for a broadcaster nailing their lines on live TV, and for an athlete, to be quite honest, nailing their shot. I mean, you've got one opportunity to catch that iconic moment. Maybe it's the game-winning goal in overtime of a Stanley Cup final. Maybe it's the knockout punch in a fight. Maybe it's the ace serve that puts a match away. So that pressure has got to be inherently there, but also probably a lot of fun for you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's super enjoyable to have all that stress and everything that goes along with it. But I mean, it's definitely something that's in your brain the whole time as you're shooting. And so that's why a lot of times I come back and I'm exhausted. Like I am just wrecked because my brain has been thinking the whole time, all right, I'm going to be in this corner. They're going to serve over there. So I need to be here to capture this. And also, with, if they score, they're going to win the match. So I need to be able to make sure that I can get them excited, the coach screaming, then all the players running out to greet them. But, if they return and do something awesome, they're going to win the match. So I got to make sure that I'm completely invested in this point, what's going to happen, and ready to make sure that I can get the angles. And it's a marathon. Like I feel just wrecked after that because the responsibility is on me. There's no one else. So I get that message, that text, or that email that says, hey, can you send us the shot of the winning point? Can you send us the shot of the team celebrating? And I can't go, oh, I didn't get it. Like I have to get it.
You and me have had some fun conversations about this. Do you know you have it when you pull the trigger essentially on the shutter? Do you know that you've got it or don't have it? I mean, I think it's like a hockey player or a golfer. Once they make that swing, or or a tennis player, once they know whether or not they've hit it perfectly or not. Do you know when you pull the trigger on the shutter whether or not you got it before looking at it?
Usually, yeah, I'd say 99%. I always, the rule I follow is if I saw the shot, if I saw the punch, if I saw, the celebration, I missed it. It has to be right beforehand. So there's a lot of times where I see an incredible punch or an incredible scream or something, and I go, well, missed it. And it's heartbreaking. And like, I have to get over it in the next second, but it's heartbreaking. But yeah, it's just like you said, I played golf in high school, and, it was maybe 3 times in my entire life of actually playing where I hit that shot and I'm like, nailed it. Like, you just know, like,
Yeah.
like it's struck perfectly on the club face and everything's perfect. And that's going to be right on the green. Those moments are few and far between in sports, but photo wise, I've been doing pretty well.
How many photos do you think you've taken in your lifetime as a professional? Can you
Wow.
put a number on it?
I mean, just in my catalog, there's hundreds of thousands of images, and those are the ones that I kept. There's lots of duds that I've taken, and also, with today's cameras, you hold the button down, all of a sudden 20 shots have fired before you can even think about it. So, yeah, I would say probably 1 million plus working on, like 3 good ones. So I'm pretty excited.
That was my next question. Something you always say to me is that you don't really like any of the photos you take. You're super critical of yourself. I'm the same way for broadcasting. I really don't like watching myself back. I don't really like listening to my own voice, to be quite honest with you. But you've said that to me 100 times. You don't like many of the photos you take, though you've taken some significantly iconic pictures.
Yeah, it's one of those things where and I'm sure you're the same way when you watch yourself back, if you do, that you see what you did wrong. And a lot of people, the majority of people aren't going to see it. And
Right.
So it's hard because people come up to me and they say, "Yeah, man, I saw that photo. It was incredible." And the first reaction to me is, no, it sucks. Trust me, it's not good. But I've learned that I can't do that because it kind of bums people out. If someone pays you a compliment, you're like, "No, you're wrong. It wasn't good."
Right.
So I have to just say, "Oh, thanks so much. I appreciate it." And then that photo pops back in my head and I go, "Oh, I should have been 1 inch over. I should have cut this person out. I should have been a half second sooner on that. I should have known that they were going to go here. I should have, it's brutal because I can always see what can be done better. Like a lot of times though, with live sports, you're at the mercy of your spot and, where the action happens, but it's still no excuse. It's always just a constant struggle to want to be better, which I think is a good thing. Like if I woke up one day and I was complacent and I was like, well, that's it. I've reached the top. Then what's the point? I don't ever want to feel that.
You've shot, I mentioned before, you've shot some incredibly iconic photos. I've seen a lot of your work just through hanging out with you, but I also got to flip through your portfolio of favorites. You've got some great ones, from Iron Mike to some tennis stars to MMA fighters. Is there a particular photo of yours that maybe speaks to you or tells a real deep story that you just look at? And I know, like you said, you're critical, but the photo of Tyson or of McGregor or White or anything like that, where you look at it and you're like, wow, like there was so much going on there. And I feel like my photo really illustrates what the moment was.
Yeah, I think you can look at any of the shots from the Mayweather McGregor boxing match. That was such an insane weekend. It was crazy to get the call. A friend of mine, Al Powers, he called me up and said, I need someone else to help me shoot this. And I was like, yeah, 100%. Doesn't matter what you want. I will be outside shooting concession stands if you want. I just want to be a part of this moment. And, everything from the weigh-in, just being the spectacle that it was, that there was a concert before the weigh-in happened. And you know how boxing weigh-ins are. They're insane. And out comes Mayweather's done it a million times. Out comes McGregor, who is just full McGregor. This is a peak McGregor. And you can see in the photo, like they do their face off and he just screams and he's got this crazy energy. And then flip side is Mayweather, who is just statuesque and just completely calm, you know, because he's done this 49 other times. He's not really stressed. And that whole event, I remember fight day because it happened so fast. Like the fight started and boxing fans are notoriously late. And there's no one in the arena, and you almost start to get that feeling like, oh my, is no one going to come? Like, has this been a whole like charade and everyone's going to figure out like what's going to happen and no one's showing up? The Star Spangled Banner hits. Everyone rushes into the arena. Snap, blink, fight's over. I can't explain it. It was the most insane evening. Like, I wish I could have seen my heart rate during that fight because I guarantee it was elevated for every single second. It was crazy.
Do you have, and maybe it was from that fight, but do you have a favorite photo? And I know that's putting you on the spot a little bit to pick a kid out of your family that you like better than the other. But is there one that you maybe are proud of? Maybe you're proud of it for many different reasons. Maybe you're proud of it because you caught the moment. Maybe you're proud of it because of the composition. Maybe you're proud of it because of the impact that photo has had on people or on a sport or on a person. But is there one that really screams at you when you think of it, the first thing that comes to your mind when somebody asks you what's your favorite photo?
You know, it's hard to pick a favorite just because, like we talked about, like I'm always saying, I could have done it better. But and this is not a joke. I'm not saying this because it's a world team tennis. But the Curio shot when I shot from behind him and you could see the racket in him. It's amazing to me how many people have mentioned that photo to me. It's amazing to me how many people have said that how much they love it and how, you know, it doesn't look like a normal tennis photo. And the number one question I get is, how did you do it? Like, how did you get that shot? It makes no sense. So to me, like, that feels special because I enjoy going into a new arena, basically. You know, I've never having shot tennis before, and then having people say, wow, you know, we really like what you did, or no one's shot it like that before. No one thought to shoot it like that before. And so to get that, especially from who the person is, that plays such a major role. Who is in the photo? Like, I could take the most beautiful photo of a guy off the street, and I could take a super blurry, crazy photo of Brad Pitt, and you're going to go, whoa, how'd you get that shot of Brad Pitt? You know? Exactly. So having him, the bad boy of tennis, if you will, it's an awesome feeling. I love it. I mean, I made it into a sweater. I love it.
I was going to ask you about that next, but you did. And that sort of speaks to me too. And I was hoping you were going to comment on that photo because it's one of my favorites that I've seen a lot of your work and I've watched you work up close and personal. So I was hoping you'd say that speaks to you. Is that the only one that you've made like maybe you've made merchandise over? Is that photo that you have there on your sweatshirt now?
I've made 3 total in my life.
Okay, what are the other 2?
Yeah. I made one of Becky Lynch, who's currently the WWE champion. She's like the most popular pro wrestler, friend of mine. So I made one of her. And then I made one of the yelling face that I talked about with McGregor and Mayweather. That's it. Those are the only 3 I've ever made. And I get stopped no matter what for each one whenever I'm walking around. So it's kind of crazy. I've had people stop me in the airport like, oh, I saw that fight. Love that fight. That was crazy. Like, oh, man, never seen that photo before. And I go, oh, it's mine. And then people freak out and they want to talk about it. And same thing with this. You know, living in Palm Beach, there's a ton of tennis people here. I mean, there's a tennis court every other street. And, you know, people will stop me in the grocery store and ask me about like what the photo is and who's on it and everything like that. So it's always a cool feeling. Like, there's certain moments, you know, where I can turn off the hating every photo and actually like appreciate it.
Take me to the transition. You're talking about a lot of tennis now. You've obviously covered a myriad of sports, a lot of fighting for you, a lot of MMA. The transition to tennis, how was that? More pressure maybe? Was it more intense? Do you have to adjust your style? Do you have to adjust your homework, your prep? What is it you like about shooting tennis?
Yeah, you know, it was really scary for the first time, simply because, you know, knowing Carlos Silva and him bringing me in, you know, there's that certain feeling of like, well, I don't want to screw this up. I don't want to make him look dumb. And also, I don't want to give anyone that thing of like, see, you know, he didn't know what he was doing. He doesn't know how to shoot tennis. Why is he here?
I know that feeling.
Yeah. So that was very nerve-wracking. And, you know, I come from MMA where, you know, a lot of the fighters and everyone involved in it know me. So at events, you know, I might get a little more leeway, a little more, you know, access. It's like, oh, it's Ryan, let him in. It's Ryan, let him take this photo. And then I'm going now to a sport where none of these athletes know me. They are, okay, great, photographer, who cares? And so I think luckily we started with the studio day before I got to the matches. And I think that played a big part because it allowed me to, talk to them for 5 to 10 minutes and get some cool photos, and then also show them like a different type of photo than maybe they're used to taking. And so that kind of like, oh, wow, cool, you did this. Oh, thanks. Can you email me that? Can you text it? I want to post it. And then it starts to get into the match. Like, oh yeah, I saw you in Miami, or yeah, I saw you in Houston. How's it going? Oh, cool, you're shooting the match. Cool. And that allowed me to be a little, more, get more access for my shots, like going on the court, getting behind the players when normally I'm sure you wouldn't do that, and just different angles, stuff that I thought looked cool that may not be the tennis norm, but I was like, I wasn't brought here to be the norm. They could have just hired anyone,
Well, I think that's WTT's, process and approach at everything. It's a little bit different. It's got that little bit more of an edge to it, a little bit more of a freedom and a comfortability to it. But I like what you said, because so much of your job and my job too, whether I'm announcing my regular job for the Chicago Blackhawks, in the winter for the NHL, or whether I'm doing tennis on WTT, there's an inherent need and importance to build a relationship and a trust with the athlete that you're covering, whether or not you're shooting them, because those photos can oftentimes be intimate and revealing in just terms of their nature. And same for a broadcaster in terms of what you're telling them and how you're talking about them and how you're presenting them to the public. So there's a big importance, and you did that. I watched you in the studio that the first time that you and I met. I watched you relationship build with those athletes and build that rapport up, and it translated into some amazing shots during the WTT season last year.
Yeah, I think that trust is the main thing. I think it's I think for both yourself and myself, it goes along with just the athlete feeling comfortable and knowing that I'm not going to put out a bad picture of them. You're not going to release whatever info they may have said in jest to you, and,
Yep.
and knowing that they can let their guard down. I'm like, you know what? We're going to talk for 30 minutes. I need to get some quotes out of you. Say whatever you want. I'll make sure it's a nice, beautiful package and you don't come off looking bad. We're going to take some photos. I'm going to ask you to do some weird stuff. It's not going to make sense. Anything that doesn't work, I'm not putting out, because it doesn't benefit the athlete and it doesn't benefit me. Like, it's really cool to go viral. It's really cool to get a ton of retweets. And then what happens 10 minutes later? Everyone forgets and they're on to the next thing. So why would you ever want to go viral for a clip where you've got an athlete to say something super controversial, or me putting a photo where someone looks horrific? Like, what did that get me except for now can't trust you?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think that there's a lot of good old school journalists that don't abide by that viral rule, that you stick to your guns and the longevity and being able to have the foresight to look farther down the road than just that immediate clicks and fame and everything. It's so much more important to have that relationship, because what you'll get later on will be much more important than what you disrespected them in that moment. All right, real quick before I let you go, what's any favorites throughout this crazy quarantine in terms of like Netflix? Have you gotten into anything? I've watched more TV and Netflix and like series than I ever have in my entire life. Like, I blew through Friday Night Lights, and obviously a big Ozark fan. I watched Man on the Moon on Apple, but is there anything that's been your like big, like, oh my God, I discovered this for the first time and I love it?
I'm watching that Last Dance documentary on the Chicago Bulls.
Yes.
And it makes me want to run through a wall. Like, I close it and I'm like, well, I got to do something. I'm like, oh, I can do the dishes. And that's it.
I'll tell you something right now. This was my first year in Chicago with the Blackhawks organization. The Blackhawks and the Bulls, obviously very closely aligned. I have been blown away by the love and respect that those franchises have for their players, but also that city. I mean, they love their teams. They love their athletes. They love their logos. They love everything about the sports scene in Chicago. It's been mind blowing to me to see it firsthand, always from a distance, but being there, I'm like, wow, like what a city, what a sports town Chicago is.
I was going to say, I think you've been spoiled, because Chicago is notorious for being incredible. Vegas, where I also lived in Vegas, and that fan base took to that hockey team like nobody's business. And there was that fear for a second of, no one's going to come to the games. No one's going to care. It's Vegas. But when you realize when you're in Vegas, it's a tight knit group. And so for you to be able to be a part of that and be a part of Chicago, I mean, it's going to be, I mean, I don't want to see you go anywhere, of course. I want you locked in forever. But I'm just saying, if it happens, if it ever happens, I mean, you're in trouble because you got two good ones, you know?
You are. Listen, buddy, I love you. You're one of the most talented, most personable, most incredible people that I've ever met in my entire life, and I cannot wait till we get back to having those dinners. And I got a feeling it's going to be sooner than later. I appreciate you coming on today and taking time out of Love Island to spend a little time with me.
You're well. I had to schedule a lot of things on my calendar. Somehow I made time for you, but only for you, buddy.
Thanks, Loco. Ryan Loco, ladies and gentlemen, the official photographer of World Team Tennis. You have most definitely seen his work, not only in tennis, but across the board. He is one of the most genuine, talented guys out there. I appreciate your time. Thanks for being on Next Up with Nick Gismondi. Thanks for watching, guys.